Hey guys, brand new podcast. They're coming nonstop. We're just going to put out as much as we can until you guys go, all right, buddy, pump your brakes. I got a new Bill Bert this week. I got a new Two Bears, One Cave this week. I got Gabby Reese I released yesterday. Tyler Florence is today. You already know that. You've already clicked it. I'll give him an intro in a second. I got a new Hot Ones that just came out. It's on YouTube under First We Feast with Sean Evans. We did a quarantine edition where they sent me the sauces. They sent me the wings. I then loaded up my own wings, which was a huge mistake. And it's airing right now. Halston just watched it. He liked it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm trying to put out as much content for free as possible. Obviously, my special, Hey Big Boy, is streaming right now on Netflix. Go check it out. Enjoy it. When this gets done, we will be touring a new hour. When this gets done. Jesus. Tomorrow night, I have a live Zoom with 500 participants that we are doing happy hour for at 5 o'clock Pacific Coast time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. This will be the first time I drank in 39 days. I didn't drink when I got here off of the tour bus. That's Sunday for a whole week and then some. And then I drank with Rogan when I did his podcast. And then I haven't drank since. So in 40 days, I've had 2 Buffalo Traces. It sits right there. No sponsor reads. It's just a good free content podcast for you. And that's it. Yeah, check out First We Feast. Check out the release. Next week, big podcast. We've got Guy Fieri. Someone else. I forget who else we have. Anyway, this week's podcast is, I've been watching a lot of Food Network. And I've been watching the great food truck race. I don't know if you've seen the great food truck race, but I got obsessed with Tyler Florence. I know Tyler from Tyler's Ultimate, Food 911. He's a Scripps guy, so I'd see him at Scripps events when I worked at Travel Channel. And I got to tell you, man, I don't work at Travel Channel. I know Scripps is kind of broken up. I think they're all owned by Discovery now. But God damn it, I love the content they're producing on DIY and on food and cooking. Not a big HGTV fan, although I watch the Property Brothers. I'm watching their new show, Celebrity IOU. I'm watching it with the girls. Man, you really very quickly see that Brad Pitt is worth every cent they pay him. Brad Pitt, Melissa McCarthy, and Celebrity IOU I should get the Property Brothers on here. Jonathan and Drew. I know those guys. I know a lot of these guys from doing upfronts and doing events when I worked at Travel Channel, but I never really got to speak to them much. And so it's really nice that they've all seen the special, that they all wanted to come on the podcast, and they were cool enough to talk to me for an hour. Tyler had exactly 1 hour. So we got him in and out. But we got Guy coming up, and then I'd take anyone, man. Those barnyard builders. I'd take the main cabin builders, anyone that's been on Living Off the Grid. I'm obsessed with that content right now. I'm also obsessed with Operation Odessa. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix. Operation Odessa is out of this world. And I've been talking about that guy Tarzan for years. I've been talking about that guy Tarzan for probably 30 years because I knew about that because that's all coming from Florida. And I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. Maybe I'll get Tarzan on here. I would love that. Should reach out. Yeah, I would like to have Tarzan. It's a good call. I'm going to reach out and see if I can get Tarzan. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to do it right now. Oh, hang on 1 second. It's my manager. Hey, Reg, have you seen Operation Odessa on Netflix?
No.
Okay, can you please see if we can get Tarzan on the podcast? Okay. Let me hang on 1 second. I'm doing a read for Tyler Florence. He's this week's episode on the Bertcast, and then I'll hop on the phone with you. Okay. Give me 1 sec. Just give me 1 sec.
All right, cool.
Okay. I guess he hung up. All right, cool. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Tyler Florence. I'm a big fan of all the Food Network guys. I've been a fan of the Food Network for as long as I've been with Leanne. That's when I started watching Food Network. Just to give you a little backstory, I lost a ton of weight when I met Leanne. I was 186 pounds. And what my rhythm would be is I'd have dinner early. I'd start drinking beers, and then I'd call it a night. I'd take a beer down to bed with me, and I'd start watching Food Network. And I got so interested in Food Network, I learned how to cook through Food Network. I think we talk about that a little on here. We talk about my shift was learning to love Emeril. I didn't get Emeril's angle at first. I didn't understand it. And then one night I did. And once I got Emerald, I got everyone. And I fell in love with everyone on that network. And that was part of the reasons, one of the many reasons I worked at Travel Channel. Obviously, I wasn't like through the roof about a roller coaster show initially, because I just took the meeting because I wanted to meet the company that did Man versus Food. I'm a big food show guy. And so when I found out that they're all related, Food Network, HGTV, DIY, Cooking Channel, Travel Channel, Great American Country, I was kind of through the roof. And I remember going to the first event, meeting Ann Burrell and being like, oh my God, it's Ann Burrell. And she was awesome. She was every bit of Ann Burrell you wanted her to be. Meeting Rachel Ray, meeting Giada, meeting Bobby, meeting Guy. We talk about that, but meeting Tyler as well. Is I'd see these guys and I would lose my shit and I could never contain myself to be cool around them. And so I never became friends with them, never really met them just other than a hello. And man, it's such a pleasure. I think I tell this story in here. Halston, I do tell the story of being at that upfront in New York, right? I tell it. I know I tell it. I tell it to Guy. I probably tell it twice. It was a very pivotal moment in my career, and I will just simply say that it means more to me than you'll ever know. That you guys listen to this podcast, that you care, that you buy tickets to come see me, but the fact that you guys kind of shepherded me back on the right path when I fell off that waterfall, and you guys were like, "Hey, man, we don't like your Travel Channel show. We just like your podcast and your stand-up. Just do specials and just do podcasts." To know that I'm on the right path right now, and that I'm doing the right thing, and that I'm going in the right direction, as opposed to the story you'll hear where I kind of was lost and I didn't know what I was doing, and I realized I was sitting in the wrong seat. It's a great feeling. It's a really, really great feeling. So like I said, we're doubling down on podcasts. We're doubling down on content. And when stand-up starts, motherfuckers, I am saying goodbye to my family in California, and I'm living on the fucking road. Living on the fucking road. When I get out on the road, you have no idea. I will be producing a blog every single day. I will be doing everything I can on the road. I will be going in and doing radio. I will be doing Tough Mudders, Spartan races. I can't wait till they lift this fucking quarantine. But until that time, I'll be just doubling down on podcasts like this one. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him from Food 911. You know him from Tyler's Ultimate. His new truck, The Great Food Truck Race, his new show, The Great Food Truck Race, is right now airing on Food Network. He is a chef. We talk about that in the podcast, about his falling in love with food before it was like cool to fall in love with food, when you just wanted to be a chef. He is a restaurateur. He has, I think, 9 cookbooks. He's an all-around awesome dude, and we have a great interview. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you stay safe. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Tyler Florence. Hey, congrats on the new show. I just binge watched it the other day. I have so many fucking notes.
Let's do it, man. Hey, big boy, how are you, man?
I'm great. So I want to talk. I really want to talk because I feel like you're one of the OGs when it comes to the Food Network.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you were a person. This is going to sound disrespectful. And by the way, if it sounds disrespectful to you listening, it's because you think it's disrespectful to you. I'm not talking about you.
All right.
But I'm talking to the person listening. You were someone who decided to be a chef and then found television, as opposed to the other way around, correct?
You know, no disrespect taken, because that was absolutely the path forward, right? So I'm 49 years old this year, and I started cooking way before the Food Network was ever a thing, man.
See, and look, no disrespect to those people who found. I know lots of them. Guys I love, Eddie Wang. Yeah. Is a guy who wanted to be a comic, restaurateur, kind of wrote a book and like got into TV. I don't think he really ever loved TV. I think it was like something that was forced on him. But you're old school in that, like, your passion is food first.
It always has been. I mean, everything else has fallen into my lap over my career, and I'm so incredibly grateful for it. I had a long conference call with Food Network today talking about what the hell we're doing in the middle of this pandemic. But I've been on television with Food Network for 24 years now, man.
That
24 years, bro.
So who was your starting class?
Starting class. It was me, Bobby Flay, Emeril Lagasse, Sarah Moulton, Ming Tsai.
Ming was my fucking man. I used to watch. Do you see? Okay, so 20 years ago, probably maybe 20 years ago, I went on this weight loss journey where I was like, I'm gonna lose weight. I was probably lighter than I am now. And every night, it's when I discovered the Food Network. Every night, I would watch whatever was on. Like I would watch. And by the way, I was like a snob comic. I'd watch Emeril Lagasse, and I was like,
yeah.
I didn't get it. Like I was like, he's a brand. Like I didn't see it. And then all of a sudden one day, just the bam, I just was like, it made me giggle. And I went, oh, okay. And I slowed down and I fell in love with all you guys. I mean, all you guys were it was my introduction technically to the Food Network, but more importantly to this company, Scripps, who I guess was, running that from day one.
Yeah, yeah, and we were in the same family for a while when you were on travel, man. So that whole big group, like the table's really big. There's something for everybody. When you hop on the Food Network, you're going to find somebody on there you're going to gravitate towards. All different kinds of cooking styles, all kinds of different personalities, and so there's in the kitchen stuff. There's competition stuff. There's always been something for everybody, and it's just gotten better over the years, and that's what I love about it, right? And so for you jumping in that from a enthusiastic standpoint, especially with like your YouTube series, right? Like when you're in the kitchen, you're cooking, bro. Like you're doing that, and what I'm watching you do the Food Network thing, but you watch it so many times that you feel so comfortable doing that because like you're so incredibly passionate about food, right? And why not, man? Like why not get in the kitchen and like have a good time, yuck it up, burn some shit, make a joke, have some friends over, because that's what we do anyway, man. Like, and not everything turns out great, and we always just I always like to say, if it comes out a little rare, you call it carpaccio, and you keep on fucking going. You know what I mean? And so that's what's so fun about watching you in the kitchen cooking too, man, because the enthusiasm has to be there, and I can tell a lot of ways, bro, but I can tell you really love to cook, right?
I love you guys introduced it. You guys really taught me how to cook, because I would watch you guys and I would learn little tiny things, and then I'd try at night or the next night to try things. And like I said, I always had this crazy respect for Ming because he was so mild-mannered. By the way, I don't mean disrespect when I say this, but like he definitely did not belong on TV. He was just a guy who loved cooking, very passionate about his culture, very passionate about sharing it. And that's why he was good on TV, is because he was passionate. Every single one of you showed up to that network fucking passionate. It wasn't about, by the way, these people that when I say these things, they'll know who I'm talking about. It wasn't about finding a cool pair of glasses to make sure people knew you were passionate because you were the guy with the glasses. It was just being in love with food.
It's just about cooking, man. And this is the difference, I think, in a lot of ways, because there's so many different shows on right now, right? Between Top Chef and Chopped, and so the idea of being a celebrity chef, like the bar has kind of dropped a little bit. And honestly, there's not one of my colleagues on a professional level or chefs that I bump into who haven't been on national television for at least 5 minutes, right? So everybody kind of walks away from that situation going like, where's my cappuccino? Where's my agent? Where's my book deal? But I'm telling you, if you can walk up to a counter of mise en place out dishes and not have a recipe in front of you and not even know where the hell you're going to go and be able to riff on all those ingredients and to be able to make a spectacular meal off the top of your head, like that's the repertoire of like what I call the salad bar of ingredients, right? I can walk up to a counter of stuff ice cold, not even know what the hell the recipe is, just a bunch of ingredients, and riff and make something spectacular like you like we planned the whole thing the whole time along. And that's just practice and experience, and that's travel, that's cooking, that's tasting, that's having that introspective of where the thing came from in the first place and be able to tell great stories. And I got to tell you, and that's why I love you as a comic, man, because like nobody tells stories better than you, bro. Like nobody, man. Like I just I just watched Hey Big Boy again for the third time like last night.
Oh, shut up.
And I'm serious, but I just like you because it's not like you tell jokes. You just like you're not gonna fucking believe what happened to me, man. And like because life is so interesting in the first place, right? And so when you're really good at it, you don't even really think about it, right? Like we do a lot of preparation for a lot of production. We write a lot of recipes. I've written 16 cookbooks. We're producing another one this year, somehow, some way, sometime. I don't know. But you always kind of get better at it. You always kind of sharpen yourselves, right? And for people to just step into that in a way and go, okay, I used to be a country music singer, and now I'm on television cooking. Like as interesting as it seems for a season or two, they're gonna run out of gas eventually, just because they don't really have the terroir of all the ingredients, right? Yeah. They're going to make mama's biscuits and they're going to make this like down home country, whatever it is. And it's all great. It's all fun. But like you're going to have a hard time getting past season 3 and season 4. Right. Right. And that's the thing about it. So I'm lucky to have been with Food Network as long as I have. Love them to death and love how everything is starting to grow. As a matter of fact, they're launching a limited series with Amy Schumer coming up. In the next couple of weeks, which is going to be really kind of fun. You should call him too, bro. You should call him. I think you might be kind of interested on the Food Network too, man, because you're definitely taking some chances, man. But it's been a wild ride, and I love every bit of it. I love where we're going. I love where we've been.
Let's talk about. I want to talk about. Like, I want to start from. I would love to kind of track if we have. I know I got you for like an hour. I got you for 53 more minutes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about growing up in South Carolina, about kind of discuss, like just being like what kind of kid you were in high school and college, like how you discovered food. I want to talk about travel and food because I did travel for a bunch. And then I'm really curious about what it was like to be one of those first people to pave the path of celebrity chef, so these are the trappings you will do. Like to the people now that are learning about like finding food as a passion. And I don't think that just because you want to mesh up as a young chef, you want to get on TV. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But like,
definitely not.
You guys were a class of a legit a class, like a freshman class of chefs that paved a way of like, hey man, I remember having conversations with all of you at different times about like, you gotta open a restaurant, start to do a cookbook. You gotta, and I'm kind of curious because you also have taken the path of like do your own show and then host a show, and then it's really fascinating. But so you grew up in South Carolina?
Yeah. I grew up in a small town called Greenville, which is like the northwestern part of the state, and now it's actually the tech capital of the state. Like BMW North America is there. There's lots of like heavy, global industry that comes out of Greenville. Very interesting place. And right now, some really dynamic Southern restaurants are coming out of Greenville. And then I went to college in Charleston. I went to culinary school.
What kind of high school kid were you? Were you like you're a gorgeous dude, like captain of the football? I mean, like you're television attractive.
Well, thank you. Not so bad looking yourself there, bro. But here's like I was kind of a different kid, man. I loved like British grunge, rock and everywhere between like the Clash and a New Order and stuff like that. Like that, I was a skate rat. I had like crazy long hair, looked like a flock of seagulls back in like the mid '80s, man, and like wore torn clothes and like I was popular, but I was kind of popular in like the outcast set. I was, we were king of the outsets, right? Or the misfits, right? And
Smoke cigarettes?
I did. Oh yeah, for sure, man. Like clove cigarettes. Yeah.
Clove cigarettes were the shit.
Yeah, man. It was the thing. Very edgy, right? Listen to Cure, write poetry.
Dude. To this day, if you play Love Cats, I'm standing up and I'm gonna dance.
I'm a dance, bro. It was just the best. So I went to I started working in restaurants when I was like 15 years old, man, just because, I just wanted to hang out with adults and do adult things, man. So I started washing dishes in like the nicest restaurant in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina. My dog's about to hop on the couch here behind me, man. That's Leroy. What's up, Leroy? He's gonna cuddle down with you. What's up, buddy?
Oh, what a beautiful dog.
Thanks, man. German short-haired pointer. But
I know. I'm
watching.
a big dog guy. I just watched the. I was about to say German Shorthair Pointer, and then I thought all of my rescue fans are going to be like, oh, so how into breeds are you, Bert? We have two bull mastiffs, so I'm like,
we had two rescue dogs, and he's 4 years old. It was just a dream breed. I had a dog that passed away, and so I just want to get something that was kind of special. And he's a great boy, man. His name is Bad Leroy Brown.
What a good looking dog. How's his temperament? Is he like calm and relaxed?
Starting to mellow out now, man. He was a fucking rough puppy, dude.
Dude, our puppy is a nightmare.
Tearing the house apart. It was crazy, man. But so I started washing dishes in the nicest restaurant in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina. And I went from washing dishes to like being a prep cook to like helping out in the butcher station, learning how to make sauces, and then kind of cooking on the line. And I just knew right there at the age of 15 that that's exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I knew who I was at a really early age. And I think that kind of self-awareness is important to start your career as early as you possibly can. I think the idea of people going to college and then figuring out what to do with their life when they get out of college, you've wasted about 6-7 years, man, that you could be doing something really important. So instead of going to like college just so you could study political science or liberal arts education, I think sometimes getting a good technical background. I went to technical school. I went to culinary school. I learned a trade, right? So I learned how to cook, and I learned how to cook in real life, but I learned how to make it. I learned the reasons why in culinary school.
By the way, you did this in 1989, I'm guessing, 1990?
Yeah, 1989. And then, I started culinary school in 1990. And then I stuck around for 2 more years. I got a business degree.
This is way before. And this is what I think is cool. This is way before being a chef was cool. You just did it. That's what's so cool about it. It's like, remember when we all found the dudes that built choppers, and we were like, wow, can you imagine? And then all of a sudden everyone's building choppers. You're like, I don't want to see you build choppers. I want the guys that chose to do it when we thought they were losers.
Yeah, right. It's just in their blood, man,
Yeah.
And so I started cooking when food came from a hole in the wall, and nobody ever knew, what the chef's name or really cared, honestly, because it didn't matter. It was about the maitre d' and, getting the right table, and whoever was in the kitchen was just like named Francois somebody, and nobody really cared until about 1990. And so when I was paying attention to it, all these chefs that were starting to pop up regionally around America, as Wolfgang Puck in LA, and as Emeril in New Orleans, and it was Jasper White in Boston, and it was Dean Farron in Dallas, and it was Charlie Trotter in Chicago, and all these chefs started popping up regionally, and they started producing what is now defined as regional American cooking, because it's so different, it's so vast, and it's so interesting, because everybody, if you look in your own backyard, there's like pockets of inspiration that you can't get anywhere else in the world. Like food in New England, way different than food in Texas. And food in Texas, way different in LA, even in LA and San Francisco, where I live, right? I mean, so just two completely different food styles, but it's all just sort of like rich and interesting at the same time. So I did that, and I went to culinary school. I got a bachelor's degree in hotel restaurant management, because I think it's important to be able to saute a nice scallop, but then to know how to make a business out of it, so you're not crashing a restaurant. That felt important to me. And Johnson & Wales University gave me an honorary doctorate in 2005. So that's fucking Dr. Tyler to you. Fuck yeah. And then after that, I moved to New York City, man. I moved to New York City with $2,000 in my pocket. That was it. I had my first month's rent, my last month's rent, and about a week's worth of cash. And I didn't have a job, but I knew that, if you took yourself seriously as a chef in America, then you kind of went to two places, right? You either went to New York or you went to Paris. And I had the money to go to New York, right? And I started working with Charlie Palmer at Oriel, which was like the biggest restaurant in the world at the time, biggest culinary name in America, hands down.
Charlie Palmer?
Charlie Palmer, yep, exactly.
Is that the same guy that I'm assuming that owns that has Charlie Palmer's in DC?
Yep, Charlie Palmer Steakhouse, exactly. Same guy.
God.
Same guy, yeah. So I worked with him back when he had one restaurant, right? And used to work the line every night. And so he was my mentor growing up. So I worked for with a bunch of other chefs, but he was a big one. That was my first big city badass cooking experience. And everything else that I grew up with, like growing up in the South, where all the food is just brown and good. It's like chicken fried steak and black pepper fried chicken and collard greens cooking down with a ham hock and and ambrosia and coconut cake and Coca-Cola out of the bottle and like pork rinds and black eyed peas. And like, that's the food, that's the delicious American cooking that I grew up with. But then you kind of take that sensibility and you go to New York City, and then it's everything is refined. It tastes great, but then it's refined to a level where it's just pure art. And so I worked with Charlie for a couple of years, and I worked with River Cafe and Brooklyn for a while. And then I took this big leap because I was married and was expecting my first child at the age of 25, and I had to start making some real money. So I did this like fake it till you make it move, where I applied for an executive chef's position, probably a little too early, but fuck it, I just did it, and I got the job. And I was 25 years old, and I was the executive chef of a restaurant, Italian restaurant called Cibo. It's on 42nd Avenue and 42nd Street, and it's still there, which I'm really proud of. We're on the cusp of Tudor City in New York City. And we were blowing up, and we were getting like really great accolades in all the newspapers. And then one night, one of the executives from Food Network happened to be in the dining room, and I was walking around like a stud with my crisp chef's coat on, walk at the table, shaking hands. Hey, I'm Tyler Florence. How was dinner tonight? Did you really enjoy that? Da da da. And she handed me her business card and said, I'm one of the programming directors with this new cooking channel thing called Food Network. And I was trying not to drool in front of her. And I took the gig, and I did one appearance, and that was it. I did one appearance on Food Network in 1996.
What was that?
It was called In Food Today, and it was like this live news show they would do every night at 6:00 with Donna Hanover, which was Giuliani's ex-wife, and David Rosengarten. I don't know if these old names sound familiar.
I know David Rosengarten.
David
Rosengarten.
Yeah, so Donna and David used to host a show called In Food Today. And at the end of the show, because they would just do like the world of food news live, and at the end of it, they would have this kind of guest chef appearance. So I did one, and I mumbled and stuttered and sweated my way through 4.5 minutes. It was a fucking disaster. But one of the executives walked down and said, "That was great. Can you come back next week?" And so, between 1996 and 1999, I was logging in like, an appearance a week. They were obviously trying to build up my face time on the network. And then in 1999, I was like Food Network's best friend for 3 years, right? And then 1999, they decided to make it official. They offered me a contract. I got my first job hosting a show called Food 911, right? Where we would travel around the country and help people out with their everyday food emergencies. And this is a guy who grew up with like really great Southern home cooking and working in restaurants in the South, and then had this level of refinement and polish kind of working in restaurants in New York. And then I could take that whole thing and repackage it with just pure technique, hanging out with everyday folks in their own kitchen and showing them how to fix their tuna noodle casserole and how to make better guacamole and how to like perfectly sear a pork chop and how to poach an egg and all these different things. But kind of break it. I was the first chef on the Food Network to not wear a chef's coat, which I'm very proud of. Right?
Yeah, I remember that show so vividly because that's right when I moved to New York. I want to say me and my buddy Weecho watched you poach an egg on Food 911. And then one night we're walking back from bars in New York. No, we used to live above Poe on Cornelia Street.
Yep.
Right. 29 Cornelia Street, right above Poe and Cornelia Street Cafe. And so my buddy Weecho's like, "Hey man, we can poach eggs. Like we know how to poach eggs. Let's poach a dozen eggs."
Yeah.
We got fucking wasted. And based off of your show and our recollection, we poached a dozen eggs, and we were shirtless and drunk, and it was fun. And by the way, I still use that method to poach an egg.
Fuck yeah, man. And that's what I love about it. Like these moments where it's like, that we have this superpower, if you want to call it that, right? We just know how to cook. And honestly, I'm a one-trick pony, man. This is all I know how to do. Like you take me out of the kitchen, I can barely pump gas in the real world, man. But this is just my thing, and I've been rocking it for a long time. And I love it. And I love that moment where you just said, like because what you did on television, we did it. And now I've got a little piece of that too. And I can make because is there, honestly, you could probably say it's a top 5 list of the most incredible things on planet to be alive with, but to know how to cook has got to be one of them. You know what I mean? It's got to be one of them. It's got to be up there. It's like, I love to cook because I love the taste of food. Like to me, like nothing, like very few things like are as exciting as that. When you taste something, it's like, oh my God, that's crazy. And to know how to make that even better. right? To possess the ability to take something that's like average and then just season it to the point where it's like, I've never tasted food like that before. That's just my gift, man. And so, you get a chance to hang out with people and again, just like travel and write cookbooks and go to food festivals and be a part of the big Food Network culture, man. I'm like I said, there was what, 5 or 6 of us kind of who started the network in a lot of ways. And a lot of those people have come and gone. A lot of them have. And now it's like a whole new generation of people. But
it bums me out a tad bit. It bums me out. It's cool to see the lifers, the guys who, it speaks volumes about your humility and your personality if you can stay at a network that long, because it means that your ego's not getting in the way. You're a good person to work with. There's a lot of reasons people stay at a network. And number one is people like them. That's it. That's number one.
And I think that's a good lesson if you ever get the opportunity to go to the big show, right? Like if you ever get your opportunity to have a Netflix special, right? Or if you get your opportunity to have a series on something, don't act like an asshole, right? Because as soon as you get it, the whole thing can just go away. And I've seen it happen to so many people before. So the second you lose that gratefulness of all of it, and it doesn't matter how great a relationship you have or how much money you're making an episode, or it could all just whoosh, go away, right?
Mm-hmm. So I saw it happen on Travel Channel. Guys would come in and I could name exact names and they'd come in and they'd be just difficult. All they get was one week of good ratings and all of a sudden they were unbearable. And you were like, and I remember being like, hey, I remember someone saying to me at an upfront, man, what's the key? How come what's the secret? And I was like, hey man, I am probably the lowest rated show on the network and I'm still here. So, and I was like, there's a reason. I'm just not a dick. I'm a fun guy. Whatever they ask of me, I always say yes. I never question them. I'm a company guy. I'm very appreciative for the job. It's a fun fucking job. And it was amazing. But it speaks more about who you are as a man or a woman when you have a job at a network like that for a while.
It's a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift to be on television. It's a gift to be in show business, man. It's a gift, right? And so when I'm out in public and people walk up to me, I never disrespect that intersection, right? Yeah. Like when somebody walks up to me and goes, "Oh my God, hey man, can I get a picture with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Of course you can, man. Of course," because I've been on television in their house for years and they have a relationship with me that I know nothing about. And I'm not going to blow that moment with them because I'm busy or I'm running late for my flight or I don't have time or whatever it is, or I'm with my kids. I mean, like some people they're kind of blind to the situation. They'll walk up and they'll start freaking out a little bit. And then with my family and my 11-year-old daughter will hold the camera and take the picture. My wife will take the picture. And so, it's just part of the whole thing, but it's been an amazing relationship. It's been a singular experience. It's only about, probably 20 or 25 people in America who've done what we've done, and to be on that network as long as we have. And it's a blessing. But the thing about it, it's like we never take our recipes for granted, right? We never take, because I try my hardest not to repeat myself or, talk about some crazy recipe we did 10 years ago. We're always reinventing it. We're always coming up with new content. We're always, recipe writing and trying to kind of keep the storyline flowing. Because I've seen a lot of chefs fall apart like that way too, just because like their food never evolves. Right? It's like, wow, you're still doing
don't get me started. The number one thing in comedy, the number one rule, in my opinion, if you're a comic, you got to challenge yourself on your next special. By the way, I'm not a genius. Bill Bert told me that. He was like, yeah, man, if you're not challenging yourself, you're not growing. And then he very simply was like, remember when you were an open micer and you got the couple jokes that worked and you're like, all right, here we go. He's like, do you still do them? And I'm like, no. And he's like, yeah, because you grew. He was like, you should definitely grow when you're also really good too.
When you're really good.
Always good for us.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm sure like you, man, because I gotta tell you, Hey Big Boy is a fucking great special, man.
Oh, thank you.
It's super funny. And so like now, and I feel like 24 years deep on the Food Network, we're launching a new restaurant in San Francisco this fall. It's gonna be a steakhouse with the Golden State Warriors. It's called Miller and Lux. We're doing that one. We've got Wayfair Tavern, our flagship restaurant here in San Francisco. I got a chicken shop at the airport, and we're doing a lot of like fun expansion in the restaurant business. And I just launched 2 new YouTube channels. One's called Wolf It Down, and one's called Wolf It Down ITK, which means in the kitchen. So we're producing a bunch of amazing content for a younger audience who don't really know a lot about Food Network or don't really watch that. So we're kind of paying attention to that Food Network thing. We just launched a newsletter. We just launched a new website called Wolf It Down. So we're constantly evolving and cranking out new stuff. And this is how you have to stay relevant, right? So it's easy to blow up. It's hard to stay there. It's hard to stay there with longevity, right? Yeah. So you constantly, like whatever you did last year, crumble it up, throw in the garbage can, and do something new to give people something to sink their teeth into. So you're not average or boring or quiet or just dull, right? So when I was in culinary school, my instructor in the sauces and skills class, this is culinary school day one, by the way, right? So everybody kind of walked in, and had your nerdy little chef's coat on and the hat and everything, right? And he picks up the knife on my board and he feels it, and he looks me in the eye and he rolls his eyes and he says, "Dull knife, dull chef." And he put the knife down and walked away. And I was humiliated, but that was the point of it, right? If your knife is dull, if your comedy is dull, if your food is dull, you're dull, right? So if that's your message out there to the world, right? If that's your thing, you're out there like pumping you as a brand. You owe it to yourself to stay commercially competitive. You owe it to yourself to be on the cutting edge of what's happening and to know if you're not, right? And that's the thing that's what's always kind of kept us relevant. My knife is never fucking dull. Never.
Dull knife, dull chef might be my new. I've been collecting quotes lately. Gabby Reese, the volleyball player, professional volleyball player, television host, athlete, married to Laird Hamilton. She said the other day, take up space. She's like, that's when I learned I needed to take up space. She's like, I'm 6'3", and here I was trying to be cower and not get noticed. And I realized, you know what? I'm going to take up some space. That fucking line for me was like, how many times have you been there? Even when it comes to listening and you just don't listen, you just make sure you don't fuck up. You will take up space and let yourself be the fuck up, and then and be yourself and take up space so people recognize you. But dull knife, dull chef is like that's, I mean, you could say that dull knife. It's just it's really I love statements like that where you take more from it than maybe they meant, but you go, oh, that's how there we go. I'm hanging my hat on something,
Yeah, because it's like if your knife is dull, what else are you gonna let slip, right? Like if your comedy is dull, if your microphone is dull, like what else are you gonna let slip, man? So like having that ability, that self-awareness, which is always just super important for people that have the opportunity to just step into the limelight and some sort of notoriety, right? That self-awareness is so incredibly important to know if you're maintaining something that's always kind of cutting edge, always on the forefront of what's happening. And so so it's been a wild ride, man. It's been amazing. I love it. I love it more than ever. And we're super happy right now.
What's the scariest you've ever been on the journey of, because like once again, you guys were kind of like explorers in how to monetize being a chef, meaning like just more than open restaurants. What was the scariest you ever were, whether it was, opening a restaurant, investing your own money, or, starting a book, doing a press tour, having a new show, walking away from a show, taking a break from food, like from Food Channel? Like what was the Food Network? What's the scariest you've ever been as an adult?
Well, I've had a couple of moments in my adult life that really like set me back a little bit, right? So I remember when I was 27 years old, and I had hit a wall, like working in restaurants professionally, because from 15 to 27, like that was my life, man. It was 100 hours a week in the kitchen, and you either had Thanksgiving or Christmas off, but you never had both. You never had a New Year's Eve off, and you never really had weekends off. You had like Monday, Tuesday off, and you always kind of worked in this like opposite. It was like opposite world for me, right? And so I'd kind of hit this wall because I was dating a girl in New York City who kind of worked in the fashion industry, and she went out on weekends, and like my job was starting to kind of become a problem. You know what I mean? Like I just, and I was starting to realize that I didn't exist in the normal world. I existed in the restaurant world. So when the Food Network thing popped up, I kind of like jumped in, leapt in blindly with both feet because I was just sick of it. I was just like, I just can't. I just can't do this anymore, man. It's just like having, like you almost have a heart attack until you count all the heads that kind of walk in the kitchen, and somebody's gonna be a no show. Somebody's gonna be a fucking no show, right? And then you go, okay, now I'm working salads, you're doing expo, you're doing this, and you just kind of try to get through and like. But I remember the first time I walked into like the set of a television show, and these are people who are just, freelancers, right? Video guys, makeup artists, executive producers, grips, lighting experts, everybody. I'm like, do you work here full time? I'm like, no, I'm just freelance. I'm just doing this for a couple of days. But then the symbiotic relationship, how they all kind of came together with level of professionalism, was like, that's kind of fucking amazing. And I kind of fell in love with the team of working in television. So that moment when I was kind of in limbo, burnt out working in restaurants and not really having a Food Network contract yet, it was just kind of dark. And I'd gone through a divorce at the time too, and I had a very, very young baby, and so I was living in Brooklyn at the time. I was on 8th Street between 7th and 8th and Park Slope, and she left and went back to South Carolina, and she took everything, all of our stuff, and we didn't have a lot of stuff anyway. So I was 27, I was making about $52,000 a year, living in New York City, which is hard even back then. And she took our child, who's now 23 years old, by the way, and the most lovely human being. He lives here in California with us. But she took our child and she took all of our stuff and she moved back to South Carolina when I wasn't even home, right? And I came back from the restaurant and the apartment was cleaned out, and I didn't have anything. I had a pile of coat hangers on the floor, right? And that was after, because I moved to New York City when I was 21. So that was after about 6 years of just hustling it hard, and just trying to be the man. And all of a sudden I feel like those were some pretty dark days. But then you always kind of pull out of it, right? You always kind of pull out of it. And I always think to myself, like the real challenging moments in my life is when I have bounced back the best, right? With the best work and the best ideas, and that moment where you, like, your backbone makes you who you are as a person.
God.
And then now, like 2020, in the middle of this pandemic, with my restaurant crashing, Food Network, postpones a couple of seasons of stuff, and you just have to quiet your heartbeat, right? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be okay. You're going to get through all this stuff, because I think adversity, it's friction that polishes you, right? So it's the adversity that you go through in your life that gives you the stamina to go through it again, because you're going to go through it again, right? There's things that happen to you that are from your own design, which you kind of learn from in life. And there's things that happen to you that you have no control over. And the best thing you can do is just kind of learn from those and start developing survival skills, right? And start developing. And so it happened again in 2008, man, and the economic downturn. I remember one of the executives of Food Network walking in right when we wrapped up Tyler's Ultimate, and they said they're canceling 3 contracts, and I didn't, and that was before we were, because I just did television for fucking 10 years, man. I did television and cookbooks, right? And so and I kind of built up this sort of house of cards in a way where I was assuming that Food Network would always be there, and because the money was good, the money was big, man. Yep. I went from making $52,000 a year to making a shit ton of money working on television. And so all of a sudden I was like, yeah, whatever, man. It's like, let's get a new Rolex, and let's go get a Range Rover, and let's get a new house, and let's go. And all of a sudden Food Network says, yeah, we're going to pause for a little bit, because it was out of my control, because all of their advertising money was starting to wrap up too, because it was just the world. And I'm like, whoa. Oof. We burned through all of our savings in about 3 months, fired all of my employees, burned through all of our we had to liquidate all of our stock, and went down to what felt like close to bankruptcy, man, and because we didn't really have a backup plan. We didn't really have anything that felt like, if this happens, I get this, and if that happens, I got that. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, when we get out of this, and I know we will, this will never happen to me again, right? So we started kind of developing these like tiers of revenue between restaurants and books and media and public appearances and different things, that we always feel like we have a pipeline of cash that's always kind of coming in. So, and being in business for yourself, as you are, right? Something's always about to sunset, right? You're always kind of in the middle of something that the contract is about to sunset, right? So I am overly aggressive about keeping new ideas in the pipeline, that may not mature for a year or so. But I know I'm working on this shit because like that thing that we're doing today won't be there forever, man. It just won't. So you have to constantly replace yourself and replace your ideas and replace your business models over and over and over again. And that's how you stay on top. And sometimes you'll knock it out of the park with a big one. And some years you stacking up little stuff, right? And it's okay, right? So some years you're going after whales, and some years you're scooping up minnows with a net, right? But as long as you got a plate of food, bro, as long as you got a plate of food and you're doing what you love, that's all that matters.
It's so funny, man. I got, how you must have felt in 2008. I think I started working for travel when I was 37. I'm 47 now, so 10 years ago. So yeah, 2009, I guess.
And Bert the Conqueror, can I tell you, my kids fucking love that show?
Oh, thanks. It's so funny. My kids just watched an episode. My kids never really saw it. They just never. They were too young, and so
when was the first time your kids realized you were famous?
I have an interesting. The first time I ever got recognized in front of my kids was at Magic Johnson's Fridays, right by the airport, and it was Sunday. I'd flown in on a Sunday, and it was a morning, and we decided to go to Magic Johnson's Fridays and have lunch. And I walked in. Bert the Conqueror had just started airing, and a bunch of black dudes were in the bar getting ready to watch football, and one of them saw me and was like, I'm with the girls. The girls are young at the time. And I hear him just go, "Oh, shit! Is that Bert the Conqueror, motherfucker?" And they lose their minds, and they come out, and they all get pictures with me. And half the guys didn't even know who I was. They just knew that he recognized me, but he was a fan of the show. He's like, "I love that show. I grew up in Ohio. I used to go to Cedar Point all the time." So then the manager comes up. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Magic Johnson's, when he owned a business, he African American employees. It was about creating revenue in the African American community.
Right.
So it's an all black restaurant. Usually, all black people went there to eat. Very white people.
Starbucks, movie theaters. He was doing all that stuff. Yeah.
And so we sit down, and then the manager comes over, and he's like, "I'm not aware of your show, but I'm aware that a few of my patrons love you, and so we want to comp your meal." And I was like, "Oh, wow!" And so I'm literally like looking at my wife, going, "Baby, it's happening! Like it's happening."
Yeah.
So like,
look at us. Check it out.
All my daughters realize. They don't realize that that I got recognized for television. They just realized that black people love dad, right? So 2 days later, we're in the mall, and anytime my oldest daughter Georgia saw a black person, she'd go, "Dad, look, get ready, Dad." And I was like, "Baby, can't be pointing at black people going, 'Dad, there's one right there.'" So that was the first time. I don't think they don't really give a shit much for they're very cynical when it comes to anything fame related. They're very they mock me pretty heavily. Same way Bill Burr is one of my really good friends. Bill Burr and my daughters are identical because for whatever reason, and I think it's because I didn't get success until an older age, whenever I get recognized, I tend to match that person's energy. Mm-hmm. So if someone's like, "Oh shit, it's a machine," I'll be like, "Oh, what's up, dude?" Like I'll match their energy. Bert told me we were at an XFL game. He goes, "Stop matching their fucking energy." He goes, "You're getting more excited than they are." Right, and then they try to match your energy. Now we have two fucking lunatics spinning out of control. My daughters would just mock it. They'd go, as soon as I started doing it, they'd do it to each other. Like they were recognizing each other. "Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, God." And so my daughters are brutal. 15 and 13 right now.
That's a really good age. So I've got my oldest son, Miles, who's in the cybersecurity industry in South Bay.
Yeah.
A super talented, incredibly smart guy. And then my wife and I have a 12-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. So I got kids the same age.
Good God.
But yeah, I mean, so the second round, because like Miles, my oldest, kind of grew up with the first wave of fame, and he was kind of with it at a different spike. Like it spiked, a bunch of times over the years. But that first spike, you're talking about like 2002, 2004, 2006. When I was Emeril Lagasse's lead-in for 5 years on Food Network, dude, it was we would do book signings in like Chicago, for example, and they would book Borders 2 nights in a row on State Street in Chicago. and I have 600 fucking people 2 nights in a row signing books for 6-7 hours, and they were going, oh my god. So like I'm with you with that frenzy thing, right? Because people, when they walk up that level of enthusiasm, you got to give it to them a little bit. You can't be like, you can't be dismissive, but you got to give them to a little bit. But man, like it's with that level of fame, especially when your kids don't realize it until they do. Now the second wave, the second round of this are little kids, right? When my daughter is obsessive, like Googling me, right? And she'll was like, Dad, did you see this thing on Instagram? And somebody said something about you. Like, how dare they? I'm like, honey, let it go. Who cares?
Oh
right?
God.
Who cares? So, but she and there's also this other thing which is kind of interesting with her too, because she doesn't like for me to over participate in a lot of things that she does. Like she's in a competitive dance group, like your dance video.
Yeah.
Like your hip hop dance video.
Yeah.
She does that. She's 11. She does that competitively, right?
Oh, for real?
Yeah, no, she's good. She's really, really good. And but she doesn't like it when I pick her up at dance class. She doesn't like it when I sit with the moms, because like kids walk out and start going, "Oh my God, it's Tyler Florence. Hey, can I get a picture with you?" And then they'll that will get reflected back to her. And the same thing happened with my oldest son too. And you might bump into this later in life. Like I know, living here in San Francisco, it's like, Kevin Systrom, who started Instagram, Jack Dorsey, Twitter. Like these are all friends of mine just because we live in the same city. And here in San Francisco, those tech stars are our celebrities, right? So like tech guys and chefs, right? Tech people and chefs, right? And so when my oldest son really wanted to get into the industry, the tech industry, I'm like, let me make a phone call for you, man. I'm like, I know Mark Benioff, I know Kevin's sister, I know these people. Let me just get you in. And he was like, Dad, don't do it, because they'll always look at me as your son versus who I am as a person, right? And that's why I'm so proud of my oldest son, because he got a job working with a cybersecurity company in South Bay, and he got the job all completely by himself, and had to go through some difficult training to get certification in a couple of different special industries, right? A special specific cybersecurity stuff, and I don't even know what the fuck it is. But he did all that stuff himself. But the fame thing, it's I can get a reservation in any restaurant in the world in 5 minutes.
Oh, I would abuse that if I was you.
It's a party trick. It's a party trick. Like people call me, I was like, hey, can you get me a reservation at Chez Ami Louis in Paris for 2 of us for tomorrow night? I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I'm like, fucking watch this shit. I'm like, boom, done, right? What else you got, right? So that's fun. But the fame thing is it's something I feel like my family is graciously patient through, right? Like they understand that relationship pays the bills. They get that, right?
Yeah.
And I try to remind them from time to time that all those people that may seem a little like obsessive, those are the people that kind of keep us, this reason we got a pool in the backyard, man. It's the reason you go to private school. It's like, so like, and it's another thing with someone earlier, like you never disrespect that, right? As a thing. But can I talk to you about something real fast too? Because I got to tell you, there's like something that your generation of comics kind of coming together as like a team of comics in LA specifically, right?
Yeah.
So how you guys all stick together and then cross promote each other's stuff is kind of spectacular to watch, right? Because I consume a lot of YouTube, and even the Comedy Store. When I go to LA, I always go to the Comedy Store, even if I go by myself, because kind of like having that keen sense of improv, to me, like watching you guys do it makes me a better performer on television sometimes. But how you guys stick together and then cross promote each other's stuff, podcasts, promote each other's specials. To me, that solidarity is kind of really refreshing.
I think it wasn't always that way. I think it was very competitive. For a long time, it was always there's only 5 spots available, and who's going to get those 5 spots.
Yeah.
And I think that I came up in that generation, and I remember that kind of pushed me into travel Travel Channel, because I was like, I remember right before I got Bert's Conqueror, I tested for a sitcom, and it was like me, fucking Chris Kattan. It was like the weirdest group of people, and I was like, this does not seem like my sensibility. So I started getting into Travel Channel, and at that time, Rogan and Carlos Mencia had a big falling out. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it was like
I've seen it.
It was big. And I think what Rogan was doing was he was standing up for comics. He was saying this. Rogan has always had and I hate to put this all on Joe. He would definitely go, I don't know what you're talking about. He would definitely say that. But he's always had an affinity and a love for originality. And he gets inspired. What stirs his creativity is seeing greatness, like seeing people perform greatness. Always, to this day, whether it's an ultra athlete or a scientist or a politician or you name it, if you are great or you do great things, Joe Rogan is fucking fascinated and he is inspired. And so when that happened with Carlos, I think he was set off to the side like this outlier where it was like, hey man, you're not allowed to play in our game anymore. The store's kicked you out. You can go to the Improv, but your friends aren't there. You can go to the Ice House. That's just a spot, but you got to do your own thing. And I think it really bothered Joe that he was kind of pushed out of the store. And so he looked at it as like, he had wanted to help comics be original. So when he started his podcast, he was very, very, very adamant about putting you over. Hey, you need to start a podcast. And I'd be like, well, I do your podcast. He's like, yeah, but do your own. Like, you need to do your own. You have your own content. You need to be your own ship. He didn't start a podcast network. He just kind of was like, you need to do your own thing. You got it. And me, Segura, Joey, Ari, you name the list goes on of guys. He said, you have to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And he said, as soon as you get your podcast.
I watch them all. Tiger Belly, Fire and the Kid. I watch all of them, man.
Yeah.
And how you guys stick together, to me, I just think it's fascinating.
And I think Joe was the kind of driving force of we are stronger together than we are apart. If we put each other together and put each other over together. If Whitney starts a podcast, we all do her podcast. We bring on our podcast. We get her podcast to be great because she can get guests that we'll never get. David Sedaris, David Spade will go over to her house. And so when her podcast, the bigger her podcast gets, when we have something to promote, we can go, yo, Whitney, my special's coming out. Can I do your podcast? She's like, of course. Mm-hmm. And so I think LA leaned into it. We learned that we had more to gain from each other than fighting each other. So when like D'Elia specials coming out, me, him, and Segura are texting like, how can we help promote it? Like, what can we do? We'll mention it on our podcast. Do you want to come on our podcast? And it's been really good. I think that the people that are not like that, in a weird kind of Lord of the Flies kind of way, we kind of weed them out. And if we notice that you're selfish and you don't want to play with the group or you want to go off and talk shit about people and be nasty and start rumors or whatever, I think we kind of go, hey man, that's not how the game's played. And I don't know why, or it is that way, but I'll tell you, it's a bizarre time to be a part of comedy, especially in LA, because, it's like, I mean, you'd never have the biggest comic in the world, which is Joe, arguably the biggest comic in the world, being like hitting you up and going, hey man, your special is premiering ... When can I get you on the podcast to promote it? And you're like, huh? I mean, it's just crazy. And to be friends. Like me and D'Elia and Tom were texting this morning because I put out this thing about a joke we did together, and my mom called and she said, I watched D'Elia's special. And then I texted D'Elia, my mom loves your special. The girls want to watch it tonight. They don't believe I know you. And so it's a really bizarre, but you guys kind of had that too a little bit, right?
We do. And it's gone through a couple of like waves of camaraderie, right? I mean, when the South Beach Food and Wine Festival, Aspen, LA, New York City Food and Wine Festival, they used to be these moments where we as a group would get together, because often we're just kind of ships in the night. And I wish we would, because I use the reference of like I don't know what wave of comedy you kind of call this right now, but like I grew up in the world of Steve Martin and Richard Pryor and all these like, George Carlin and all these guys that were just like speaking the truth back in like the 70s and 80s and Eddie Murphy and like those are the comics that I used to like just like really just like listen to and study and get their albums and listen to over and over and over again, right? But then like this next wave of comedy that's kind of coming out, it's not about you, it's about us, right? And so and every time I'm in LA, and I'm in LA, well, I haven't been in LA in a month, but like I'm usually in LA at least once a month or something, right? And every time I drive by, because I used to stay at the Chateau, So I always drive by down Sunset, and I'll see the marquee at the Comedy Store, and I'm like, boom, like I know all those guys because I watch all your podcasts and stuff. So I feel like I know everybody on there. It's like, it's like, Coco Diaz is like, fuck, he's gonna crush tonight. It's gonna be great, man.
Joey, that would make Joey's fucking day that you just
yeah. Tell him I said hi. I don't know him personally, but I just feel like I've watched him eat like Stars of Death on on the Church of What's Up, right? Whatever it's called. Like it's just so funny, man. His shows are so funny, dude. Like, so all you guys, man. I'm like, so like I just appreciate, and I wish that, because I bring this up a lot, and I have a hard time describing it, but I bring it up a lot. There's a sense of camaraderie that I think we should develop a little more in the culinary world about promoting each other's shit. Because like now it used to be this thing where, like, I got a restaurant, I got a cookbook, and then if you're lucky enough to get a TV deal, cool. But now if you don't have a restaurant, a cookbook, a TV deal, and a podcast series, or you're doing something kind of independent in that world, you're not maximizing your exposure in a lot of ways, right? So to me, I actually said this earlier today, that you never want to like put yourself in a position where you're waiting to get picked, right? Never.
Yeah.
So having this moment where it's like you're promoting each other's stuff, and everybody's kind of boats rising with the tide, like everybody's making each other famous and popular, right? In a way where if we're all like trying to quietly hustle a deal and go to auditions and go to readings and try to get the sitcom, whatever it is, and kind of cutthroat the other guy, like nobody wins in that world, right?
Yeah, it's almost like, this is going to sound silly not to bring this back, but it was like, I was watching the Great Food Truck Race the other day, and I was like,
season 12, by the way, man, we did that for 11 years, man.
But it was interesting. They were all in Vegas, and they were all going to different places. And what's funny to me is I thought it was like the one guy went to the Vegas sign, the LBGTQ truck went to the LBGTQ headquarters, which I thought was a fucking cheat because they guilted people into not buying their stuff. It's like if they didn't buy their stuff, they felt like they were committing a hate crime. So but it was really, really interesting because I thought, as a comic and the way we operate, I was like, oh, you guys should all just go. And I know you can't do this, but you guys just all went to the same parking lot. The more food trucks around, the more I go, oh, they're my options.
That's what I tell them all the time. Like I quietly and privately give them advice every episode, right? And if I say something to one team, I'll make sure that I'll circle back with the other team and make sure they get that same little nugget of wisdom. But I think, when the trucks kind of join up together and then in that force, it looks like there's a party going on versus you by yourself in the parking lot looking like a loser, right? Like you're with 3 or 4 trucks, you look like a party. And I want to know everybody, and I want to party with all of you.
I think and that's the way we kind of look at. Look, I've said privately, I've said publicly to every Scripps, and which I think is all Discovery now, but every Scripps talent that as long as I was ever there, I said to every single one of them, start a podcast. I said to the president of Scripps, I can't remember his name, the guy that lived in Arizona that had the big house with the garage. I remember showing him my man cave one time, and he was like, "Let me show you mine." And I saw a car, and he goes like this. He goes, "How do I zoom out of this thing?" And I go, "Oh, you pull your." And as I pulled the fingers together, it was a massive space. It was like, I go, "What is that? A bat cave?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah." But I said always, I'm number one. Everyone should have their own podcast there. They should have 8 years ago started a podcast network, brought in the ad sales teams from food, combined, started their own ad sales. It would be a game changer, because they already have talent and buyers set up to work together. My thing I used to say is Food Network would always go up. We have the number one magazine in the space when it comes to food. They would always say that at upfronts. And I used to tell Greg Regis, I'd go, say it, the one time you go, we have the number one lifestyle podcast network in the world. One day that's going to mean something. That day's now. And I'm like, every single one of you, I mean, we do Something's Burning, my cooking show. We release an audio podcast. We do Something's Burning Uncut, where I just release from the second the mic goes on to the second the mics are off. And we release the whole thing. And it's more downloaded than my regular podcast. And it's just, but it's, you know what it is? I mean, I'm just stealing from what you guys did. I loved cooking shows. I loved hearing people talk about food. I loved it. And I love the conversations that food brings in. The conversations are always better. You always end up talking about your family, your culture. You talk about all these great things, or you talk about fucking nothing because you're just having wine.
You're
And I
both
think
around. That's great. Yeah.
But I want everyone to start a podcast.
Well, so we had a pod, and this is how my brand Wolf It Down got started, right? So we did, because it's hard to, when we come up with a new brand, we go through this discipline called naming the baby, right? Because you can't think about what the name of the baby is now. You have to think about how people are going to make fun of them in the third grade on the playground, right? So it has to be a very thoughtful name when you name a new project or start a new company. It's called naming the baby, right? So we're trying to find this like witty, like a foodism that felt like, attainable, but quick and simple. So Wolf It Down popped up out of the blue, right? So I copyrighted it. I own all the domains, the website and everything. I bought that up, right? And then we started a podcast back in like 2000. God, it must have been 2017. We started podcast, and we did 19 of them back to back to back, and they got a little expensive to be able to produce. So I think a good piece of advice for everybody is like, how do you get over that hump? Because you can't produce crap, right? You can produce something that's unedited, but you can't produce crap. It's got to have some sort of like, roll in music underlay. You have to do read commercials. You have to have some sort of polish to it. So to give people that tool that can give them the ability to cross over the dry part where you're just doing it to do it until you get 20,000 downloads a week, 25,000 downloads a week. Because that was the thing. Because it's not like we needed the money, but it was starting to burn from other pockets of cash that we had, just paying for producers and stuff like that to keep the whole thing going. So how you guys kind of like jump into the podcast world and immediately have sponsors all kind of lined up, immediately have all these kind of things. Is that part of the network too?
What that is like you said, it's that camaraderie. So at one point when I was on travel, I've said this story a million times to my fans, but Rogan and Bert were backstage at the store, and I got off stage, and they said, it felt like they were talking about me, and I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Your show sucks." I go, "Really?" And they're like, "Man, it was Trip Flip." Yeah, it was Trip Flip, and they were like, "It's not you. It's not who you are. You're not that guy. You're not a TV host. You're a comic and you're a podcaster." Like, and Burr goes, "What's your nut?" And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "What's your nut?" I told him, and he was like, "Okay, all right." He's like, "We'll get you sponsors. We'll get you an ad sales rep. We'll figure it out. But just get back on stage. Just get away from Travel Channel." And then luckily, I think her name was Courtney White, fired me. And same thing that happened to you. We're done. It was a pleasure. I never actually worked with her. It was the greatest. I name her because I'm so grateful that she did it. I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't see it at the time. I was like you said, I was panicked. I was lost. I was like, what am I going to do? It was the lowest part of my life. I was just like, my friends stepped up and they were like, we need to get your podcast to 50,000 downloads. At the time, that was the threshold. We got to get you 50,000 downloads an episode.
A week.
Yeah, per episode. Yeah. And so they all jumped on my podcast. All the big names in comedy just started getting on my podcast, and they were like, "Come on, let's do."
That to me is that kind of camaraderie. I wish other like sectors would do that, right? Because it's just that teamwork, right? We're all going to get through this together, and collectively, you've reinvented comedy. You know what I mean? Like you've reinvented comedy for a whole new generation of people, introducing all new characters and new favorites, and like Chris D'Elia's podcast. Like that's so that's so interesting because he just fucking riffs off the top of his head for an hour and a half about fucking nothing. But it's so funny to watch him just sort of like do it, right? And everybody's podcast is just a little Tiger Belly. That's like a
Tiger Belly is the best podcast to do.
It's ADD fucking ping back and forth thing.
That is the funnest fucking podcast to do in the universe.
I bet it is, man.
Well, dude, when you come down, when this shit gets over, and you've got your restaurants and your restaurants opening with the Warriors, dude, make a trip down to LA. I'll put you on everyone's podcast. You'll do a podcast run. It's great press because look, the people that listen to podcasts, they love good booze, they love good shows, and they love good food.
I'll cook, bring some wine. We'll do a whole thing. It'll be fun, man. It'll be fun.
It'll be a blast, and I'll get you on Tiger Belly. Like we'll do a podcast run together where we just go and you got to do Joey Diaz's. Either fucking Star of Death and do Joey Diaz's.
Oh my God. Bring us some pasta, man. Like the pasta over our shirts, man.
I wish I could get you guys.
Yeah.
I know food's very like proprietary about who gets on cooking shows, but I wish I could bring you guys on Something's Burning. I would love to have you
No,
on.
yeah, I have a very old school contracted, so I'm clear to do anything I want to do. You know what I mean? Like food, like I work with Food Network, and I've like I can't I can't remember the exact terms of what I can't do with somebody else, but all this stuff is clear. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I got to get you out of here. I know you have a busy day, but man, I could talk to you for hours. I haven't even scratched the surface. So if you want to do another one of these while we're in quarantine, if you got a free day, I would love to keep talking to you.
Fuck yeah, dude, let's do it.
I have a list of questions I never even got to.
Well, and honestly, like I could talk to you and talk to all of your colleagues, and like this space right now, because I'm such a fan of comedy, right? I mean, I'm such a fan. Like for years, like if I was in LA shooting, I would go to the Comedy Store by myself and just watch comics for fucking hours. I mean, I like Whitney Cummings. I saw her like fucking 15 years ago. It's like just doing her thing. And so to me, like I like seeing all of you guys be so wildly successful and collectively as a group rise to the top of the genre in a way, but no one's real standing out. Everybody's collectively as a group and with no ego. And I did love the way you guys bust each other's balls on podcasts and stuff like that. It's just like, and the fighter and the kid, is that fun or what?
Oh, fuck yes.
That's brutal.
Brian Callen is like human Prozac, man. He makes me giggle hard as fuck. And Brendan Schaub is like a huge baby. Brendan Schaub is straight up athlete. Like you forget what a fucking athlete he is.
He's
like
6'4". Isn't he?
Oh,
right?
He's a beast. He is a beast. He did a hot spin with me one time, and you forget. He was also a professional athlete. Like he just his go mode is different than the average human's go mode, and he's also like a man. So he's like he didn't bring any water, so he just grabs your water bottle, takes a sip, puts it back. Stuff that like polite society doesn't do. Brendan Schaub is right there. He's like a big thumb.
Yeah, and Brian Callen. I mean, just like listen to everybody sort of like bust their balls as friends.
Bro, I got it. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna do a press run for you of podcasts with all my buddies and all the ones you love, because you and Brian Callen need to go out to dinner together. He's
Brian. He's a big foodie.
Big foodie, legit big foodie. Like, I mean, he was probably the last person in restaurants when coronavirus was hitting. He was like, no, one more meal.
Yeah, right. I know during like the Joe Rogan podcast, he's always late because he's got wine and cheese.
Oh, yeah. He's a legit foodie and one of the sweetest, funniest guys in the fucking world. Like,
so funny. So funny.
Blast. Well, dude, I'm going to let you get out of here.
Well, thanks, man.
I've been a fan for probably 20 years. It is so great to talk to you. I feel like we're family because we were under the same umbrella for such a long time.
Yep.
And I feel like we've had similar paths in lives in that, when you talked about, 2008 and they're pulling back contracts, I was there. And that backbone thing. And this is, if we can put a stamp on this of like a motif, that backbone thing is what everyone's going through right now. Is like, this strong, you're only strongest at your broken parts, and you got to let them try to break you. And that we're all going through that right now. And some people to much more extent than say myself, or maybe you, or maybe Callen, or maybe Brendan Schaub, or maybe Rogan. Maybe it's a lot tougher for a lot of people. I think that's the clear part, but it's everyone's going to look back and go, oh, okay, I got through it.
I got through it. And I think that's the message for everybody right now. You're gonna get through it. You got it. Most important thing, stay healthy, right? Yeah. And be really, really kind to everybody, because I have no idea what somebody else's day is like. But no, this will pass. Like we'll be okay. But for us doing stuff like this, right? I mean, we're not gonna let the flame go out on anything, man. No. Never, bro. Never. Like I so as much as you love us on Food Network, I gotta tell you, I love you guys back, because like you crack me up every fucking day. You know what I mean? I love paying attention to the podcast. I marvel at the solidarity of all you guys kind of hanging together through thick or thin. And especially now, I have like burned through all of like the new stand-up comedy specials on Netflix, because I'm sick of bad news. I don't watch fucking bad news, but I've been watching comedy specials over and over again. And I gotta tell you, like you are the top of your game. You're fucking funny. Like, and I got to tell you, and as everybody else is telling jokes, you're a storyteller. And I think in this really kind of like Mark Twain kind of way, like you've got this ability to hold people's attention by telling a story that really happened to you. And it's very authentic and it's fucking real and it's hysterical.
Brother, nothing but respect and love. Thank you so much. Let's get through this, get you down to LA. Oh, look at that beautiful Jeremy short-haired pointer.
Not badly Ward Brown, man. We're just chilling up here in California, just like cooking, hanging out, loving life. And
what are you guys eating for dinner tonight?
What are we gonna eat tonight? I haven't thought about it, man. We got some stuff in the kitchen. New York strip. I got some New York strips that came in. I've got this is the fun thing about being a chef in quarantine. Like people send you shit. Like so, working with our my meat distributor Creamco out of Oakland. I just got a big box of like some dope steaks, man. I'm cooking New York strip, bro.
It's the best part about being a podcast host is I got Omaha steaks, I got Butcher Box, I got Blue Apron, I got everything in there. I'm love my sponsors.
I love them. Well, good for you, man. Good for you. All right, man.
Stay
Listen,
safe.
all the best. All the best. It was a blast.
Thank you so much for doing this, Tyler.
I'm so glad we did it, man.
Me too. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man. All right, talk to you soon.